A despair tore from Gilbert's throat as the titanic, spectral form of Anubis plummeted from above, crushing his entire body beneath its suffocating, insurmountable mass. The manifestation of the skill was incredibly brief, lasting a mere 10 seconds, but that fleeting window was more than sufficient to utterly break the Fat King's spirit. Suddenly, a thunderous detonation rocked the battlefield. Colossal chunks of the surrounding flora were violently ripped from the earth, launching into the sky and raining debris in all directions. Amidst the chaos, Lin Tian's voice cut through the destruction, urgently commanding his allies to push the advance without stopping. The World Vine's capacity for regeneration was nothing short of miraculous. If they paused for even a fraction of a second, the encroaching tendrils would entomb them completely, cutting off any hope of survival. Just as warned, the terrifying regeneration speed of the world-class creeping roots becomes a nightmare reality. With a sinister, echoing rustle, the massive green tendrils violently weave back together, sealing the newly blasted opening and threatening to swallow whole the soldiers trapped beneath their overwhelming shadow. Fiona surges into the fray at the head of a heavily armored vanguard, her voice echoing across the battlefield as she announces their arrival to the Goblin King. Hearing Fiona's arrival echo across the chaotic battlefield, the Goblin instantly recognized the shift in momentum. With an evil, confident smirk stretching across their faces, they realize their moment has come. It is finally time to turn the tables and slaughter their foes. Gazing at the oncoming charge, Stephen's face twists in pure horror and utter disbelief. Centaurs? Weren't those legendary half-beast warriors supposed to have been wiped out ages ago? He grits his teeth in a mixture of fury and desperation, completely unable to comprehend why such an ancient race would ever align themselves with a horde of goblins. Lifting a glowing weapon high toward the sky, the commander lets out a battle cry that echoes across the chaotic battlefield, ordering everyone to attack and completely crush their foes without holding back. With bloodthirsty war cries of kill echoing across the battlefield, the heavily armored goblin vanguard charges forward like a juggernaut of polished steel and green rage. Raising their massive polearms with terrifying coordination, the ferocious horde surges ahead, ready to impale anyone standing in the path of their unstoppable advance. Panic spreads like wildfire through the enemy ranks as the overwhelming reality of their situation sets in. Desperate screams to retreat ring out across the chaotic battlefield, with fighters crying out in utter disbelief at the endless swarm of green-skinned warriors. Encircled from every direction by bloodthirsty goblins brandishing spears and heavy axes, any hope of escape rapidly evaporates into the dust of combat. A sinister, confident smirk curls across Lin Tian's face as he looks down at the desperate forces below. Even if an absolute monster could slay thousands with their bare hands and incinerate 30,000 more with destructive magic, it means nothing against the sheer scale of his 100,000-strong goblin army. No matter how legendary or powerful his opponent might be, reversing a tide of this magnitude is nothing more than a pipe dream. Before he can even process the chaotic slaughter unfolding around him, a dark, sinister hand wrapped in a crackling purple aura grips him firmly from behind, freezing the blonde fighter in pure, unadulterated terror. Emerging from the shadowy shroud with an ominous purple radiance, a terrifying figure with piercing red eyes locks onto its helpless target. With a menacing whisper that freezes the blood in their veins, the sinister entity coldly asks where they think they're going, promising to personally deliver them straight to hell. Overwhelmed by pure, suffocating terror, the panicked fighter flails helplessly as he is cast into the dark abyss. Screaming at the top of his lungs in total despair, he desperately begs for anyone to save him, unwilling to accept his demise as he stares right into the cold eyes of a true Grim Reaper. Amidst the suffocating terror and chaotic slaughter of the battlefield, pure desperation takes hold of the front lines. Realizing they stand no chance against the overwhelming onslaught, a battered warrior screams at his comrades to flee, begging them to deliver a frantic message, to tell Guild Master One-Eyed Owl that he must come down personally if he wants to end these monsters once and for all. As the embers of chaos flicker across the battlefield, the sharp-haired elf warrior readies her radiant, glowing blade. Glancing sideways at her companion, she questions why he's letting the remaining survivors escape, casually reminding him that when they teamed up, fighting and dying for his personal cause was never part of their agreement. Before the conversation can even settle, a violent shockwave erupts with a deafening crash, tearing through the earth and launching shattered stone into the air as the battlefield explodes into total chaos. A torrent of golden flames explodes across the sky as the sharp-eared warrior descends like a blazing comet, her radiant weapon surging with fiery intensity. Down on the ground, the armored fighter can only glance back in grim determination, feeling the blistering heat of her burning aura close and before the full force of her strike crashes down. Teeth gritted so tightly they threaten to shatter, every muscle in his face strained against the crushing heat. With eyes wide in raw desperation and fury, he braced himself for the impending impact, refusing to break even as the overwhelming force surged down upon him. A sharp, sickening spray cuts through the roaring heat as the brutal strike tears past his defenses, spewing a crimson arc into the scorched air. In the wake of the brutal strike, a menacing shadow looms amidst the infernal glow, painting the scorched sky in hues of violent crimson and violet. Before he can even recover from the crushing blow, the horde of heavily armored goblins surges forward, tackling him to the ground in a ravenous frenzy. Metal grinds and armor sizzles under the sheer weight of the mob as demonic screeches echo out, commanding the swarm to tear him apart and devour him on the spot. Before the enemy can even regain his footing, Alice surges forward with furious momentum, her weapon crashing against his defenses in a violent burst of sparks. The sharp, deafening clang of steel echoes across the battlefield as both warriors lock forces, the air crackling with intense, high-octane pressure as they clash in a deadly test of speed and power. Veins bulging with fury, he roars in sheer disbelief as the chaotic nightmare unfolds. The official war declaration clearly promised an honorable one-on-one duel, yet he now finds himself drowning in an endless sea of ravenous goblins. Glaring at Alice through bared teeth, his voice trembles with bitter betrayal. He had always respected her honor, never imagining she would sink to such shameless, deceitful tactics. Sparks fly as their heavy blades lock together in a tense stalemate, the air thick with murderous intent. Shutting down his foe's frantic accusations of dishonor, the black-haired warrior makes it bitterly clear that Alice had nothing to do with this strategy. He was the one who mobilized the relentless horde, and while the enemy may have envisioned a chivalrous one-on-one duel, no such promise was ever agreed to on this battlefield. Admitting he underestimated them, the man warns his opponent not to celebrate too soon, declaring that despite his side losing the war, he will be the ultimate victor. Vowing to return and take his revenge, the enemy retreats in a sudden surge of water. Alice apologizes for letting the enemy escape, but Edward reassures her, noting that simply holding off someone far stronger than herself was already an impressive feat. Lin Tian instructs Alice to lead an expedition against the Kingdom of Sword before Edward can absorb the Kingdom of Magic, reassuring her that the Darkborn will support her while he visits the Dragon Slayer Guild. Lin Tian determines he must travel to the Dragon Slayer Guild alone to gather information and locate the Dragon Crystal to resurrect the Purple Dragon Mother. Before departing, he realizes he almost forgot one other important matter. Lin Tian asks his guard about Rebecca's recent condition, only to learn that she has been completely silent and unmoving in her cell for the past few days. The black goat's egg drains sanity upon direct eye contact, leaving Rebecca in a dying state after she locked eyes with the fetus growing inside her. Lin Tian dismisses his guard, who respectfully obeys and steps back, leaving him alone with the bound prisoner. Since Rebecca is completely unconscious, Lin Tian realizes he has no choice but to rely on luck, build a new anchor, and hope she can return. Targeting the bound succubus Rebecca, Lin Tian triggers his system prompt to execute a lucky snatch and steal her trait of absolute obsessive devotion. Rebecca lets out a sharp scream as the trait extraction takes effect. Now conscious, Rebecca frantically screams for him to release her, shouting that she missed her darling deeply. As she struggles against her chains, Lin Tian demands that she calm down and tell him everything she knows about the baby inside her womb. The overwhelming force of the system overwrites Rebecca's shattered psyche, instantly washing away her past as a frantic, unhinged obsession takes hold. Flushed with intense devotion, her crimson eyes lock onto Lin Tian, her breath coming in heavy gasps. Her mind has wiped clean of everything else. All that remains is a desperate, burning desire to be near him, pleading fervently that he is the only thing she can think about and that she wants nothing more than to merge with him completely so they will never be separated again. A sharp, violent crack echoes off the damp stone walls as a heavy palm strikes across her face, cutting off her unhinged pleas in a single, brutal instant. The impact snaps her head back, forcefully shocking her frantic mind back to reality within the cold silence of the dungeon cell. Baring his sharp fangs in sheer frustration, Lin Tian barks at her to pull herself together for just one moment. With tension crackling in the cold dungeon air, he demands that if her love for him is truly genuine, she needs to stop her frantic babbling and spill every single detail she knows about that child. Despite the harsh strike snapping her attention back, Rebecca's composure immediately shatters under the weight of her intense obsession. With her cheeks burning crimson and her breath coming in shallow, frantic gasps, she manages to blurt out that while she can still sense the exact location of the child, her control over it has completely slipped away. But any lingering shred of logic quickly vanishes, replaced by a desperate, feverish devotion as she gazes back at Lin Tian, panting that nothing else matters, because he is the only thing she truly desires. Lin Tian facepalms in utter exasperation, cursing under his breath as he realizes her mind is consumed by nothing but lust and feverish devotion. Realizing that logic won't reach her in this state, he grimly accepts that if he wants to extract the vital information he needs, he may just have to swallow his pride and sacrifice himself to play into her wild desires. Within the cold, shadowed depths of the dungeon, muffled cries and desperate moans shatter the silence. The heavy air thickens with raw tension as muffled gasps of pain and pleasure echo beyond the heavy wooden bars, proving that Lin Tian has made his grim choice, sacrificing his own pride to give in to Rebecca's unhinged desires if it means prying the crucial truth from her lips. The succubus is left completely flushed and panting for air, totally overwhelmed by what just went down. Meanwhile, Lin Tian casually hitches his pants back up like it was just a routine workout. He voices his surprise that a literal succubus was still a virgin, but she defensively insists that nothing improper ever happened with Lady Veronica, so of course she's pure. Skipping the post-care entirely, Lin Tian locks in and demands she finally spill the tea on the black goat's egg. If her guess is right, Lin Tian is currently heading straight for the kingdom of magic. With a population of hundreds of thousands, letting him feast freely there could evolve him into an unprecedented half-divine goblin. He realizes he needs to time his move perfectly to capture and tame him before he spirals completely out of control, turning him into the ultimate trump card against rival empires. Lin Tian flies high above the clouds on the back of his massive red dragon. They touch down at the foot of a mountain, standing just a dozen miles outside the War Empire's domain. Gently petting his red dragon Xiaohuan, Lin Tian tells her to head back for now, warning that pulling up together into enemy territory will instantly blow their cover, promising to find a way home once his business is handled. Lin Tian bids farewell to his dragon as it takes off into the sky, telling it to stay safe on the flight back. He reminds himself that he's still locked into his goblin form, meaning infiltrating the Dragon Slayer Guild will require a proper disguise. Before he can even figure out a plan, random voices ring out through the woods, spotting him and shouting that there's a goblin. Two random guys spot him and immediately start talking big, convinced taking down a weak goblin is their ticket to flexing in front of the village girls. Lin Tian just hits them with a dark smirk and a quiet humph. Cut to a moment later, and fresh blood splashes across the ground. Both overconfident hunters are already laid out flat on the dirt, completely wiped. Lin Tian notes he was just trying to figure out a way to score a disguise earlier, but convenience literally delivered one right to his doorstep. The War Empire is low-key thriving, with packed streets and massive castles dominating the skyline. Taking a bite of his snack, Lin Tian admits he didn't expect this place to be so ridiculously prosperous. Walking through such a lively town makes him want to drop some cash. Too bad his pockets are completely empty, leaving stealing as his only option. Standing in front of some ridiculously grand spires, Lin Tian finally pulls up to his destination. Gazing at the giant fancy gates, he assumes this extra-looking compound has gotta be the Dragon Slayer Guild. He hits the gate with a solid knock, fully expecting someone to come open up. Total radio silence. Not a single soul comes to answer. He checks the time, sure it's early morning, but shouldn't someone be awake by now? Since nobody is opening the door, he decides waiting is overrated and simply vaults right over the massive gate. He steps up to the massive ornate entrance and bangs on the front door. Peering through the slight crack in the door to check out what's taking so long. He spots the entire hall packed with rowdy adventurers getting drunk, completely drowning out his knocks. Realizing subtle knocking won't work, he decides to make a loud scene so he can finally sign up for the Dragon Slayer Guild. Turning around to see what was behind him, his danger meter immediately spikes into the red zone. Standing right behind him is an absolute giant of a woman, making him look like a complete side character by comparison. Her status window reveals Elizabeth Tilly, a berserk titan warrior dubbed the embodiment of violence and beer connoisseur, sitting on a casual overall power rating of nearly 11,000. Bro is sweating bullets after seeing a power level over 10,000, wondering if he's actually staring down One-Eyed Owl, a guild master from the Dragon Slayer Guild.
This certified baddie is tied to a tree in the dark forest. She's giving total damsel in distress energy, expecting some Sigma male with W-Riz to swoop in and save her. Instead, our reincarnated MC, Gorals, rolls up, but he isn't playing the simp. This absolute Chad just stares at her ropes and hits her with the ultimate toxic fuckboy line, asking if she's just practicing for some kinky bondage. He ignores her tears and effortlessly mogs a squad of hidden human hunters like they're nothing. Meanwhile, back at the fortress, the guard captain is in his office getting his weapon handled by a desperate pick-me girl. He's feeling like a top 1% high-value alpha. But just as he's about to reach his peak, a soldier bursts in. Furious, the captain shoves the tradwife wannabe away, zips his pants, and stomps outside to execute the beta cuck who ruined his climax. But his ego instantly shatters. Sitting in his courtyard is a massive mountain of bloody armor from his elite squad. Turns out, Gorals didn't just survive. He scored a private VIP session with an exotic goblin girl boss. This literal material girl loved his tragic backstory so much, she let him completely explore her inventory. Now, buffed to the moon and leading a monster army, Gorls is marching to the fortress to show that soyboy captain what a real alpha looks like. For a full recap, check out the channel and the link in the description. Be sure to take a look if you'd like to watch the complete video.